Hey friends, welcome to episode 577 of the My 123 Cents podcast. I am Kevin Huntsberger, joined once again this week by Chad Smart. Chad, welcome back to the pod. How are things going?
Uh, Things are going well. We were discussing before we started recording. It's just, I do the Out of Touchstone video series over at Out of Touchstone here on YouTube, and I'm working on my last episode of Pharaoh's Vault, which is, for people who don't know, Out of Touchstone was originally conceived as going through Touchstone Pictures releases, and then we added in the Hollywood Pictures release once Hollywood Pictures was founded in 1989. And yeah, I'm starting to think that I really should have given this YouTube thing more thought and stop trying to be creative and just stare at a camera and talk about movies. And
Yeah,
it would have been a lot easier and a lot quicker
yeah.
and a lot cheaper also. But yeah, I'm working on that. I've got the last episode of Pharaoh's Vault for 1995 coming out this week. And then the plan is to do a Christmas episode and then take 2 weeks off for the holidays and come back after the first of the year, looking at 1996 and starting a new series that I'm not going to tell you about, but I know you're going to be interested in.
Okay. All right. Well, looking forward to that. We are chugging along here looking at, traditionally in December, we have gone back and forth and we've done holiday themed podcasts. And I don't necessarily think if someone strolls across this in July, maybe they don't want to hear about Christmas related.
Mhm.
So we're going to
You
keep
don't
it.
want Christmas in July?
Well,
Pick a better month to explain. Yeah.
we have, speaking of Christmas, though, we are winding down this week with the My 123 Cents Wrestling Figure Drive. The donation will be made probably either later in this week or early on the week of the whatever that is, 14th, 15th. So we'll be doing that at the Carbondale Toys for Tots. And again, that all the donations go to 5 different counties here in Southern Illinois. So if you've donated, thank you. We appreciate it. Also wanted to mention, and we'll figure out kind of a year in review or some sort of year in thing. Obviously, next weekend is John Cena's last match. We will have some sort of reaction to that. And we're going to talk today about current WWE and AEW and all of that, but tying it in with, because I like talking about the nostalgia and the what ifs and the could have beens and should have beens more so than criticizing or as Chad does with AEW, filleting the current product. So we'll get to that in a few minutes. Chad, first though, are you up
Yeah.
for a blind ranking, holiday style? We are going to theme the holiday blind ranking though.
Just call me Jake Roberts or Rick Martel because yes, I am ready for it.
I mean, I'm not getting that reference.
WrestleMania 6, was it?
7.
Blindfold
Oh,
match? Seven?
blind. Okay. When you said yes, I'm ready. I'm like, they didn't say it. Okay, the blindfold. Okay, I got it now. Okay, sorry, a little slow today. So, have you've seen the movie Home Alone?
I have.
Okay, there are 2 very memorable characters in there, known as the Wet Bandits, played by Daniel Stern and Joe Pesci. They are the foils to the 9-year-old Kevin McAllister, played by Macaulay Culkin. So today, Chad, we are going to recast the roles of the Wet Bandits with famous or infamous tag teams of wrestling past. That's a spoiler that these are all older tag teams, not current tag teams.
All right.
So who do you think would play Marv and
Harry.
Harry, thank you, in the Home Alone film franchise? Our first team. Oh, you didn't know? It is the Road Dogg, Jesse James, and Badass Billy Gunn, the New Age Outlaws.
And this is before Badass became Daddy Ass, right? He didn't have
Yeah.
kids of his own that he had to look after.
Mm-hmm. True. Yeah.
I think Road Dogg would make a good Harry, but I can't see Badass being, or no, I'm sorry. Road Dogg would be a good Marv. Can't see Badass being a good Harry. So I'm going to put them at number 4.
Number 4. Okay. Up next, a short-lived tag team, but a fun one nonetheless. And these are going to all be more fun style of tag teams, by the way. Booker T and Goldust.
Hmm, that's a tough one because I mean, Goldust, he's the Oscar. You know, he's the film connection is right there. Booker T. I think Booker T. when he would be plugging the sinks to flood everything, he would have to do a spinneroonie and do his five times. So I think the cops would show up before they could even escape. So I'm going to put them at number five.
Number
Five,
five.
five, five, five,
I
five.
I see what you did there. I like
I
that.
did. That was not intentional. So
Hey, sometimes those things happen technically. The next one is the most recent tag team that we have seen. Former WWE Tag Team Champions. Awesome Truth. It is The Miz and R-Truth.
oh, they're number one. You know, R-Truth's getting in there and causing havoc, and Miz is going to be annoyed with him like Harry is with Marv. So yeah.
I had a feeling you'd go either that one or this next one as your number one, and that is pausing for 5 seconds, flash photography, Edge and Christian, or I guess Cope and Christian Cage these days.
I don't see them getting into that type of trouble. I think they're more pranksters than robbers. So we're gonna put them at number three.
Okay. Well, our automatic number two, and I think this is a great one too. If you're watching, he's holding up my Santa Claus stocking here right now. Former WWF Tag Team Champions, the Iron Sheik and Nikolai Volkov. Although I think they would be a much slower than others, but I think they could
Yeah.
take the bumps that Marv and Harry took for sure.
Yeah. Well, and I think Iron Sheik, he's gonna humble poor Kevin McAllister. He's gonna yeah.
Yes. Ready to get
Uh,
back and humble him.
I was waiting for the Bushwhackers to be on there. That was gonna be my number
You
one.
know, until I came in here to set up, the Bushwhackers were on here but when I saw the Iron Sheik figure, I'm like, oh, I got to put Sheik and Volkov in here too. So yeah, the Bushwhackers got replaced, and I actually also had the Rock and Sock Connection as part of this, and I pulled them out for Edge and Christian. So maybe I should have kept them in, since you are right about Edge and Christian being more pranksters than thieves, if you will.
Yeah.
So. But Mick Foley's too Christmas spirited, so I'm like, he wouldn't want to try to hurt Kevin McAllister. So.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and I was trying to think if there are any tag teams with Wet or Bandits in their name, and I got nothing. So
Yeah. Well, isn't there a guy in AEW Bandito?
Bandito, yeah.
Yeah.
But that's one guy.
Yeah.
I guess you could go do Brodito, his tag team with Brody King.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, could have pulled some current teams out, I guess too. But
Yeah, well.
we like the nostalgia here, and we're going to talk nostalgia, but also tying it in with current modern day stuff. And Chad, I'm going to start this whole discussion off with one simple question. It may break into two different discussions, but we're going to start with WWE first. Who, right now, December 2025, who is the top guy in WWE or girl? Top wrestler. Who is the top wrestler in WWE? When you think WWE in 2025, December, who immediately comes to your mind as that is the person?
Roman Reigns.
Okay. I'm glad you said that, because that is, and we didn't discuss this beforehand.
Yeah.
So this is the whole point of this discussion, because if you look, Roman Reigns has not been a champion in WWE in over a year and a half, almost 2 years now. Mania 40, he dropped the belt or the belts, and he has not been a champion since then. Cody Rhodes and CM, of course, are your respective world and universal champions. Dominic Mysterio is the IC champ. I don't even know who the US champ is right now. Somebody newish. He won it.
Yeah, I have no clue.
Long ago, he beat Sami Zayn. I apologize.
Oh, it's Ilya Dragunov then.
Yeah, Dragon. I knew it was something with a D, but I apologize. But anyway, that's the point of this week's podcast is, as I watched Survivor Series, and did you see any of Survivor Series or
I saw Io Sky jump off the top on a trash can for the third year in a row while people stood around watching.
So yeah, watching that and Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar both came out last for their respective teams, which I think unofficially it seemed as if it were Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar as the team captains, even though the two world champions were on the babyface team. Do you think that's problematic in WWE? Because I don't think you're the only one, and I don't know. I feel like Roman is still the star, gets the star treatment,
Mhm.
gets the top dog, no pun intended, treatment in WWE. Even though I could make a case that John Cena is right now, but obviously with him winding down,
Yeah.
in a week, and by the time you're listening, this will be less than a week. Um, I don't know. I harken back to the 80s and 90s where it was clear cut, it was defined. Hulk Hogan
Yep.
was the champion and the top guy. And even though he lost the belt for a bit, I don't think he ever, guys like Randy Savage and the Ultimate Warrior maybe never got that chance to shine because Hogan never really did, even though he went away to record for a little bit of film or whatever, he always came back and was always positioned as the top guy, you know. Um,
Oh yeah, I mean we've discussed it before. It's the Poochie effect.
yeah,
It's when Poochie's not on screen, everyone has to ask, "Where's Poochie?"
yeah.
And so even though they're not there, you know, I mean, I may be wrong in this because again, I haven't watched WWE programming in a few months, but when Roman Reigns isn't there, do they still talk about him or mention him at all? Whereas, like other guys just they get injured or they just aren't being used anymore, and they just vanish into the ether of uh, the wrestling backstage locker room, and they're never seen for several months.
I don't, and people please weigh in as you're listening or watching if I'm wrong on my account of this. I don't feel like they necessarily mention him, but it does feel like oftentimes it's like in case of emergency, break the glass, and then Roman Reigns comes out, and we've seen him I think come back 3 or 4 times this year. He's there and then he kind of goes away, and then he's there. Like I think he was in the Royal Rumble, if I'm correct.
Mm-hmm.
But then he didn't really, I don't think he wrestled again until WrestleMania. And then he was gone for a while, and I think he popped back up at or around SummerSlam,
SummerSlam.
did a couple matches, then faded away again, and then he came back and did this run for Survivor Series.
Mm-hmm.
And we were in that time frame of going to WrestleManias when it was like they were cramming Roman Reigns down your throat and wanting him to be the guy, and it just
Yep.
people just weren't buying it. And now it does feel like all of a sudden that he is the guy. And it makes me wonder about CM Punk, for example, because I think
Mm-hmm.
you were a Punk fan at one time. I don't know how you are today, with 47-year-old CM Punk, but
Yeah.
summer of Punk in 2011, it was an exciting time. It kind of reinvigorated things, I think, a little bit, at least from my perspective. Do you ever think though that CM Punk was ever really truly treated as the top guy? I know he got that main event of WrestleMania finally this past year, but it was night
Mm-hmm.
one of a 2-night event. And there's been that debate that's kind of gone back and forth. Did he really truly main event WrestleMania, or, because he was part of the Roman Reigns Seth Rollins show, he was kind of the third man in that main event. So give me your thoughts on Punk, and should he feel disrespected, or is there enough room at the top for multiple top guys? Because, like I said earlier, 80s, it was Hogan, and then it was Savage and Warrior were kind of on that little pier underneath that. I don't ever feel like
Mm-hmm.
they were on the same plane. But right now, you could make the case that, there's Brock and there's Cody and CM Punk and Cena. But then I don't know, like putting Rollins and Drew McIntyre, do the Logan
Mm-hmm.
Paul, do those guys belong on that same plane? I don't think so.
I don't
Uh,
think so.
I think clearly though it is Roman Reigns right now, and I
Yeah.
don't necessarily agree with that.
Well, okay, to go back to your question about CM Punk, no, I don't think CM Punk was ever treated as the man. And, he had the first over a year long reign
Hmm.
since,
Yeah,
was it since Savage, Hogan? It had been a
yeah, maybe
decade.
Diesel might have been Diesel.
Diesel. Okay. That makes more sense. But that story, he was never presented as the top dog, and then he was sacrificed to The Rock
Yeah.
so that they could get Once in a Lifetime Part Two, which I still think should have filed a class action lawsuit against false advertisement. But it wasn't like, oh, you've been this champion, and now we want to, you're the focus. It's, well, we have The Rock and Cena over here, and that's where our attention is going to be, and those are the stars. And we've talked. I'm going to tangent probably several times in this answer, but
Sure.
we've talked about it before, where during the Attitude Era, mainly because of the competition with the Monday Night War and the top guys, Hogan, Savage, uh, Nash, were weren't coming back to WWE. But anytime a uh, someone who had been in WWF would come back, they were treated as less, and the new stars were put over. Um, but now, ever since the Attitude Era, it seems that whenever an old star comes back, they, no matter how long it's been since they wrestled, who they're going up against, they are treated as better than the current star.
Hmm.
And I think that's a problem where, and we've talked about this before a lot, that it's the fans' reactions, because, if you're sitting in that arena and Diesel's music hits, people aren't going to sit there on their hands. They're going to be like, oh my gosh, Diesel's here. But does that mean that Diesel should be winning, a match over Drew McIntyre right now? Probably not. But that seems to be the mentality of the last 20 years in WWE. And I think, you mentioned Warrior and Savage weren't the top guys when Hogan was there. Then to take that one step further, when Hogan and Savage left and Warrior, who picked up the ball? And I mean, Bret Hart was there to become champion, but I don't think fans really saw him on the same level as Hogan at the start of his run, and Shawn Michaels. And then, same way at the end of the Attitude Era, when The Rock, Steve Austin, Mick Foley, were all gone. It was like, it was Triple H, and then they brought in Brock and Cena, and, finally got them up to, and I'm forgetting The Undertaker being in there, but, it's always been like, there have been a few, less than a handful of top guys, and then some other guys that they could put in for a match, but they're more seat fillers than top guys.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I would say, on one hand, it has helped with the predictability of the Royal Rumble, for example. Probably the last 5 or 6 years, it's been a little harder to predict who's going to win, because there is that depth of talent.
Mm-hmm.
If you go back to 1999, that's the year that it's Austin and McMahon start the Rumble and end the Rumble. I don't think there was any question who was going. I know Vince McMahon won it, but Austin ended up getting the title shot. But there was not one other person. I would challenge anyone to go back and look at that 1999 Royal Rumble lineup. There wasn't one other person that I think fans seriously thought was going to win. And
you don't think, when there was the like 10 guys in the ring, but the camera's cutting back to Austin at the end, you don't think any of those 10 guys that they're
that's
not
exactly what I was
going to
say. Yeah, I mean, you've got the match going on, and we're in the backstage area or in the bathroom or wherever they were fighting. So from that standpoint, I like it. And then, I go back to 89, 90, and just thinking back into the late 80s, when they're trying to go and build for WrestleMania 6, and they have to go face versus face with Hogan versus Warrior, because they didn't have anyone on the heel side, I don't think, built up enough that had the credibility that would have been a legitimate threat, because you wouldn't want to do Hogan Savage again. Savage was probably your top heel at that time.
Mm-hmm.
He'd been there and done that, was the Macho King, and I love the character. Rick Rude, I don't think they treated well enough. I think that he could have been. We saw what he did in WCW. I almost, in hindsight, I wish they would have either turned Hogan or Warrior heel in that time frame, just to have something fresh and new.
Mhm.
And it wasn't because even though, like we said, Hogan was gone, Hogan eventually ended up being gone in 1990 after dropping the title because Earthquake attacked him. And what did they do in that time period? They started a card writing campaign for Hulk Hogan, Get Well Hulk Hogan, which of course was part of their whole marketing thing where they then send you their catalogs and stuff. But the focus was on Hogan's injury, and Warrior was in six-man tags with the Road Warriors against Demolition. He's the world champ. It just, to me, it was a missed opportunity for the Warrior to really truly get, and I know his work rate wasn't that great. Um, but man,
I mean, that was a time when work rate really wasn't a
yeah,
big thing for WWE
yeah.
audiences. Yeah.
But it's like I just think back on that and I look back at that Survivor Series, and the perfect team is Mr. Perfect and three members of Demolition. Randy Savage didn't even wrestle at that. It just going
Mhm.
back and looking at it through obviously, 35 years later, it's like, man, there were so many missed opportunities here. And they were babyface heavy. They didn't have those top heels. And then conversely, not to just dig on or rag on WWE, but WCW in the same time period is doing the same thing, but opposite with Ric Flair. He'd lose the belt to Dusty Rhodes or to Ronnie Garvin or Kerry Von Erich, and then he would always win it back. But there was never like that until he left WCW in 1991. And then they had to lean on Sting and Lex Luger and eventually build up Vader and those kinds of characters to make it work. And it's weird to kind of go back and look at it and just think, man, if they would have just done a little more with these guys or
Mhm.
given them something different. It's obviously it's hindsight, but um,
Yeah.
I,
Well, I think it's also, the fact that if someone is doing well as a champ, to put the title on someone else is a big risk
mhm,
because,
mhm,
it's like, is business going to stay healthy? Are people going to come and see, this person either defend the title, or do they want to see somebody get the title off them?
mhm,
And I get it. Part of that is why you build up someone who's credible to be the champ, the challenger into the champ. But I think, especially, going back 80s, 90s, when the wrestling industry was a little bit different than it is now. And it was a lot of paranoia and egos. And, if I'm not champ, what's my role in this company? Whereas now I think you see a lot more, uh, due to the structure of contracts and whatnot. It's, hey, I'm not the top guy, but I'm still getting paid.
yeah,
I don't have to be champ to get the extra bonus, to go to the pay window, if you will, baby.
right.
So I don't know, but yeah, I think there's always been an issue with companies not having the next generation, if you will,
Mhm.
of talent ready to go until they have to.
Well, and I'm going to dovetail this now into because
Mm.
you just brought up a very good point that I wanted to talk about this week as well, and that's Cena's last match. It's coming up. We now know that it's Gunther, which we've talked about that for weeks now. Kind of the internet speculation.
Yeah.
I'm not thrilled about it. I'm not crazy about it, but it is what it is. I've seen a lot of backlash online, and I want to get your perspective on this. That the finals were LA Knight, who I think is 43.
Mhm.
And Gunther, who is 38,
Eight.
37, 38, somewhere in that neighborhood. 20 years ago, yeah, I would have said that these are two older guys that are going at it. But in today's wrestling world, again, we've
Yeah.
talked about it before. Age is, 43 is still pretty young when you look at Punk and AJ Styles and Chris Jericho and Edge and
Mhm.
Christian and all those guys. So 43, he's still got plenty of time. And
Yeah.
even though he's 43, he hasn't been on top or in the spotlight, LA Knight I'm talking about,
Mhm.
for 10 or 15 years. It's barely been a couple of years. And Gunther, kind of the same thing. And I don't view Cena's last match as a necessarily designed to be a torch passing moment.
Mhm.
I could be wrong about that, but I didn't look at like when Flair wrestled Shawn Michaels for his last match. We're talking WWE last match, of course.
Mhm.
I didn't see anybody bitching about that and saying, Shawn Michaels is too old and established to be retiring Ric Flair.
Well,
Um,
we didn't know that it was going to be Ric Flair's last match. If he would have won that match, he could have still
that's
continued
true.
to wrestle.
But even going back a couple of years ago when it was Jay Lethal and Jeff Jarrett in the
Mhm.
tag team match for Flair's last, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
to me, the torch passing moment happened at Survivor Series when Cena dropped the IC title back to Dominic Mysterio. And I know there was all kinds of shenanigans and all that involved with it, but Dominic was recently named the top wrestler under the age of 30 by
Mhm.
someone, I don't know who. Um, and I'm not saying I disagree with that, by the way. I wasn't trying to be snarky with that. I just don't remember the publication that put that out there or whatever
I think it was at the Rock 316 Suck It on Twitter.
But I guess the point is does it have to, does Cena's last match, and I think we both probably think that Cena's going to lose, and he's going to lose because he wants to leave a legacy and pass that
Mhm.
or whatever you want to, however you want to say it. I don't necessarily. I think you could still have Cena win this match and it not be a bad. And we can go into maybe next week we'll dive deeper into the whole
Yeah.
Cena booking for the past year, but um it doesn't bother, like the age thing doesn't bother me. The thing that
Well,
bothers me is I'm not a big Gunther fan. I would have
yeah.
rather seen, because the same people who are bitching that it's Gunther or LA Knight, who are 43 and 37 or 8 respectively, are the same people who were saying, well, I think Edge should be the one to come back and do it, or it could be The Rock coming back in. And I'm like, those guys are just as older. So,
Yeah.
it's like, do we want to see a new talent? Because to my knowledge, Gunther and John Cena, nor LA Knight or John Cena, have wrestled each other one on one. So to me, it's a fresh match at least, and so if you look at it from that perspective, but what are your thoughts on all of this?
Well, real quick, I'll just throw out two things to probably save for the conversation about Cena's last match and his last run for next week.
I'm going to write it
Uh,
down because I'll forget between now and
okay.
then.
Well, I'll remember because I'm being snarky because it goes back to what I said on the last episode that I was on. What was the point of Cena winning the IC title?
Hmm.
And actually, no, I just forgot my second point. No, it was going to be in hindsight, and this isn't. I'm not trying to be, like, oh, WWE should have done this. This is just what I was thinking about this week with how things have played out. Should the finals of the Last Time Is Now tournament been at Survivor Series, and then Cena gets to handpick his final opponent to be who he wants to fight as opposed to who WWE, and who knows, maybe he did pick Gunther. It's like in Sting's last match in AEW, fans were upset that it was the Young Bucks that he was challenging, but then it came out that that's who Sting wanted to face.
Right.
So who knows, Cena may want to face Gunther. Now, going on to the age thing, I don't know who said it, but there's a quote that says, if you didn't know how old you were, how old would you think you are?
Mm.
And I'm going to kind of echo what you already said. People got sick of Hogan on top because he was on top for 7-8 years.
Hmm.
Like you said, LA Knight's only been back in WWE for a handful of years. Gunther's only been there, and I mean Gunther has been top champ for a long time. In WWE, he was NXT champion for like a year. He was IC champion for over a year. And so I can get that aspect of like, okay, he doesn't need the match. But when it comes to the age thing, yeah, I don't think, it's not like the Iron Sheik is out there hobbling around and not being able to take a bump.
Yeah.
It's these guys are still maybe not at the top of their performance, but just a step or two below. So I think when it comes to age, I think, again, I don't think it's so much as age as how much we've sat through them,
Right.
Yeah. If Steve Austin came back again, fans wouldn't care that he's, pushing 60 because we only got like 4 years of top Steve Austin.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah, right. No, I agree. And I wondered too, with uh God, I lost the thought. I as you were saying that, it was all making,
mhm,
but when you talk about the handpicking of opponents and
mhm,
we as fans, I think, and maybe not you and I so much, but I do think
yeah,
fans in general get this sense of entitlement, or like we've talked about this before too, where it's, well, this match didn't go the way, or they're not booking this the way that I wanted them to
well,
book it, so they suck, or
yeah.
they're dropping a ball, or they're wasting an opportunity. And it's like sometimes I do think, especially with Cena, I'm sure his influence in this tournament or in this
Well,
run has been part of what's going on
I
here.
mean, there's a story that came out this week. I don't know if you saw it, that he wanted to do 200 dates. He wanted to do like a full year schedule, and they was like, no, we only need you for 36 dates.
Mm,
And so, if that's the case, then yeah, I would say WWE kind of fumble,
hmm.
but but because, and this is going to totally be non biased in any type of actual information that I have. This is me being the internet fan that we're talking about. TKO loves money. If
Hmm.
Cena's there for 200 shows, ticket prices are still going to be high, but they're not going to be what they will be if you say he's only wrestling, you know, 10 times this year. And
Right.
he's only going to be on Raw 4 times. So if you want to see him on Raw, you need to go to this Raw. You can't go to the one next week. It's got to be this one.
And
So
get the special shirt for that
get the,
city. Yeah.
yeah.
I just wrote that because I'm like, okay, this was a part of a bigger picture. So,
Mm.
let's do a prediction for next week or for
Uh,
Cena's last match. Two names floating around. Will they be there? Will they not? Um, I hate even bringing it up because it's been on other podcasts ad nauseum, but I'm curious about your take because I haven't heard. First one, this guy, Vince McMahon. Will he be there? And if he is, will he be featured on camera or have any sort of role, or will he be in the crowd like Shane and Stephanie were at Saturday night or at Monday Night Raw in MSG?
I could see Vince being there
Hmm.
because apparently Cena and he are good friends.
Hmm.
Um, he will not be on camera because if even if everything that has gone on in the last year or two with Vince wasn't going down, Vince was not one to want to be on camera
Yeah.
unless he's playing the Mr. McMahon
Yeah.
character. Um, so I could see Vince showing up, maybe being. I mean, they said Cena is going to open the Saturday night's main event. It's not going to be the main event on Saturday night. Um,
See,
so I was going to say,
I thought Cena said on Jimmy Kimmel the other night that it is the main event.
it could be. I'm going by what I don't
Oh,
know. I just said I my thing would be that they don't want another Goldberg situation where it
yeah.
gets cut off, so they put him on. Although that could be a timing thing that they could, do better. But anyway, I think if Vince is there, he'll be, I don't even know if he'll come in and mingle with everybody backstage. It might just be he comes in, either goes straight to a, private room or right to a suite, and then he can see Cena later. But I would not be surprised if word comes out that Vince is there.
Okay, the other one is I don't have an action figure to demonstrate with, but it's in Washington, D.C. He's in the
Mm,
WWE Hall of Fame already. President Donald Trump. There's been speculation that he will also, in fact, be there, which I think might change a lot of I don't want to say the vibe of the show, but like with security and all that, I know obviously there would be a lot of work going into that.
yeah.
Do you think we see Donald Trump? And if he's there, we'll see him, right?
I mean, Trump loves going to UFC events,
Yeah.
and so he's got that connection with TKO, and they put him down in the audience. It's not like they keep him away.
Hmm.
I mean, I think for Trump's ego, he'll want to be there and be on camera, but you know, and this is going to sound bad because it's like I have no problem if Trump shows up. I actually will find it amusing, but part of me is also like I think we have other issues that probably should be focused on more than John Cena's last match.
Right.
And granted, I mean, he could come in, watch the match, and leave. It's not like he has to stay there for the
Yeah.
whole show and be there before, and I'm sure he could be. What the heck is going on? I don't know if you can hear all the banging going on
I
the wall.
I heard it a couple of times. I'm like, is it
Yeah.
trying to escape your apartment right now?
Well, I thought I had the ropes tied tighter. Um, yeah, I don't think Trump will be there, but I would not be surprised if if I was betting man, which we should really need to set up the my 123 cents code at DraftKings.com to parlay into this talk. I would, yeah, I would bet even. I'd bet a push. I don't even know if that's a thing, but yeah, I don't see him being there, but I won't be surprised if he is.
So you say there's a better chance that Vince is there than Donald Trump?
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. I don't necessarily disagree with you on either of those accounts. Because I think when when they did the thing on Raw with Flair, because we were there in the crowd, obviously, and Vince came out, but I think that was after the show went off the air, wasn't it?
I think so. And did Undertaker in the show, or did Undertaker even come out afterwards?
I think Undertaker was even afterwards.
I think so, because I think that was still in his mystique, not
He was still maintaining
character. Yeah.
Okay, so we talked about WWE and top guys and all of that. Now you obviously are a bigger watcher of AEW, and this is also I am going to kind of dovetail back to WWE with this question. But who is the top star in AEW right now? Is it easier to define than in WWE?
No, I would say maybe Hangman Page. He's your top guy, your top star. But I guess maybe their playing field is more spread out to where I could see, they have a handful of guys that could be champion and be credible. Samoa Joe just won the title off of Page, which was a surprise. Joe is facing Eddie Kingston on, I think, next week's Collision or Dynamite or the week after. I don't expect Eddie Kingston to win the title. And Eddie's kind of like, I think, in the Tommy Dreamer camp, but probably not wanting the title, because that's his character. But at the same time, if they put the title on Eddie this quickly, I would be surprised, but I wouldn't be shocked. Or maybe I would be shocked, but I'm not surprised, however you want to qualify that. Right. And I think, and the crowd would get behind it. They wouldn't be like, oh, why is this guy champion? And then you have Swerve Strickland. I think he had a world title match opportunity a few months ago. Kyle Fletcher is up there. Takeshita could be if they're Okada. They have guys that if they made them champs, I think the fans would buy into it, even if they're not like right now, if you don't think about them as champs, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I get it. What about Toni Storm? And do you think we an era where a company refers to their top star, because notice I did say top star and I didn't say top guy. Will there ever be a time in our lifetime, which is dwindling as we speak? But I mean, God, when we were kids, and it's funny to me because I go back and read some of these message boards or post on social media, and I saw somebody arguing the other day that Wendy Richter was just as big as Hulk Hogan was in the golden era of WWE or WWF. And while I do agree that Wendy Richter was a big deal at that time, I didn't see her on the same plane as Hulk Hogan. I mean, Hulk Hogan, if you didn't live the 80s in that time period as a wrestling fan, you're never going to understand it completely, in my opinion. And I'm not saying that to be, like, oh, we're so much cooler because we were around in the 80s, but it was on a different stratosphere. The popularity, it was crazy. And nobody was even anywhere near him, including Wendy Richter. And I hope that one day Rhea Ripley, or I don't necessarily think she will be, but there's talent out there. And Toni Storm, I've said it before on this podcast, I think is AEW. If she's not the top, she is top five of their biggest stars because that character has just elicited some kind of response. And again, I think a lot of times you've got to find the right person to play that character, and she has done that to a T. I think she's wonderful in that role. So, and you kind of said when I said Toni Storm's name. So, I mean, do you think she's up there in the conversation, don't you think?
Yeah, and I think maybe even though you didn't say it at this point, because when we were talking about this, and top guy, my mind just my sexist brain went straight to guys. And I didn't even consider the women, but I think Toni Storm is definitely, if not number one AEW star over the last year and a half, 2 years, then she's number two. And I think it's like you said, it's that character that has just resonated with fans to where it's just, I don't know. It's a connection that few wrestlers have. And would she have still had that connection if she wasn't timeless? If she was, the character that she was when she came in, or the character she was in WWE, would that have gotten over? And again, I don't think so. And that's where, again, Tangent City, when we talk about WWE, WCW, AEW dropping the ball with people, he said, like, I think there are some talents that, obviously, if you don't give them a chance, you can say, but there are other times where the character that got them over only happens in certain situations. And just because it didn't happen in one company and it did in another, doesn't mean that would have happened, in the original company. We've talked about it before. Steve Austin, I don't think would have become Stone Cold in WCW, no matter how much mic time they gave him, because that character came about, and then obviously the Austin 316 catchphrase came about because of very specific situation. So and as far as women, WWE, I think Rhea Ripley is the same way. And you mentioned her, like, I think I don't want to say she's at that same level, but I think she is the Roman Reigns of the women's division right now. And I say that as a positive and a negative. Positive being that's how big of a star she is. Negative in that when she's been out injured, it's still like, hey, when's Rhea coming back? What's Rhea going to do? Is she going to be champion when she comes back? So,
and there's all kinds of side.
And just real quick, one thing I want to mention, Wendy Richter, I think was big, but I think because she was out of WWF shortly after WrestleMania 1, I think then her stock just plummeted. And so, like, you had to be maybe in the 6 months around WrestleMania, she was, could run with Hogan, but I don't think I would be hard pressed to find many fans from that era that would say she was. Again, if you want to say who was the female Hulk Hogan, sure, Wendy Richter. Sure. But if you want to say, is she on the same level?
Yeah. No. Right. Yeah. And it is, it's interesting to look back and to think back because, at that time I can remember the magazines. They, he and her were on the covers of them. Wendy and Hulk were on the covers of them, holding a trophy or holding an award or whatever the case was. But I just think it's hard to match that. And, as we kind of wind down the conversation of top stars and things, again, it is somewhat subjective, but I think that the company obviously finds those two. Cody Rhodes, without a shadow of a doubt, is the workhorse as far as the going to things, being a spokesperson. I think that has tapered off a little bit in 2025 because of John Cena's retirement tour. And he, I've listened to several of John Cena's interviews over the last couple of weeks. Not just I saw the Jimmy Kimmel clips, and I saw he's been on a couple of podcasts and stuff. And he just is such a good person, and I just like listening to his perspective of things. And I don't know that there will ever be quite that mouthpiece because Cody does the role well. I think that he can show up in the suit and look pretty decent in that role. Roman Reigns, though, and CM Punk, and I don't mean this to sound the way it's going to come out sounding, but they're too much wrestler, I think, and not enough of that everyman. It's a hard way to explain it, but that's
No, I got you. I mean, I haven't seen Roman do a lot of non-wrestling related stuff. I have seen Punk. I mentioned it several years ago. I saw Punk at the NHL All-Star game, and he refereed the mascot game, and was very personable with people afterwards. I think, and I've seen him at baseball games. I think if you take him out of the wrestling element, and he can just be Phil Brooks, he can be fine. But I think if you bring CM Punk back into it, whether it's because of the character of what CM Punk is, or why he thinks it needs to be for that character. Yeah, I don't see him he's not authentic, I guess.
Yeah.
Maybe a way to say it. Like if he's trying to be nice.
Yeah. That's a good way to say it. And as we wind down here, I think we've had this conversation before, but even though he's had more celebration as WWE champion, something that Dusty never did, Cody Rhodes, I think, is by some deemed the most successful of the Rhodes, but I still, there's something about Dusty and his legacy, and maybe 20 years from now we'll talk about Cody that way, but for me, there's still something missing with Cody Rhodes. I like him, but I'm not gonna go all in with him, and no pun intended with that. I just have not there is a disconnect somewhere in there. And again, I know that as a 52-year-old, I'm not what WWE is targeting. There's a lot of people, I go to the stores and I look at those action figures for the toy driver, or even, different websites and stuff. And there's a lot of Cody Rhodes stuff, figures and dolls and puppets and all kinds of things. So I get it from that perspective. And that is where, they're making their money, t-shirt sales and all that good stuff. But I think he's a good dude. I like listening to his podcast, or, watching his podcast clips on social media, but as the guy that comes into the ring and tries to cut a promo, and maybe I hold him to a higher standard because of Dusty. I don't know what it is, but for me, there's still that disconnect. And I think you've always kind of felt that way.
Well, my reasoning is he didn't earn his place in WWE. He left as a mid-carder and came back and was immediately, top dog. I mean, yes, he lost at WrestleMania 39 for whatever reason, but it was always going to be, him being back at the top. And, he had the 3 matches with Seth when he first came in that he won. And I mean, he got injured and was out for several months. So things may have been different had he been there the entire year. But yeah, to me, it's just like, okay, we're going to make him the face of the company now that John Cena's not here. And he's good, like you said, he's good at the job, but it doesn't connect. It's just, it's too forced. It's not a believable. Yeah, to me, he hasn't earned it.
Yeah.
So, like if LA Knight eventually ever gets pushed and gets to the champion, he's gone through the adversity to get there.
Right.
Cody never did, other than losing WrestleMania 40 and having a rubber chicken thrown at his head. 39, yeah.
But yeah.
And then the match at 40 was overbooked to,
But you're counting the return, not Dashing and Stardust and all that before he left WWE. I think
he was a mid-carder. He never. There was
no. I think some fans would argue with you that was him paying his dues and.
Oh, I'm not saying he didn't pay his dues. I'm saying as Cody came back,
right? You're talking about the return.
Immediately being placed in there instead of coming back and working his way up
and toiling it. Yeah, I got you.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to add, Chad, before we wrap up this week's episode?
Uh, I was just gonna say AEW Revolution coming back to LA in March. Tickets go on sale next week, so I'll pick yours up. So you might want to start checking flights and making your plans to come out and visit. It'll be a better show than WrestleMania was. Probably won't get kicked out this time, hopefully. Who knows? But yeah, other than that, again, we've said it. I'm looking forward to the conversation next week about Cena's last match. I'm not a huge Cena fan. We discussed last time that I don't expect to be emotional watching it, but it will be an end of an era, and I'm curious to see how they go with it, and can't wait for Goldberg to run in and spear Gunther so Cena can win,
There you go.
and then
All
Bret
right.
Hart kicking a plane.
Yeah, we'll talk about that sometime. Friends, thanks for listening and or watching to this week's episode. Have a great week, and we will see you next time.